All right, so we have done some line experimentation, exploring different line types, line directions, horizontal, vertical, curved, jagged, the whole range. We've explored line quality by thinking about how we're holding our pencil, right? Depending on how we hold that pencil, that's going to change the way the tip is touching the paper. Also, how we change the pressure and how that can, determine the line weight, how thick or thin our lines are. And then we've done some good observations of our natural object. So I got my leaf here, right? And we've really taken the time to explore the different line types we see in that object and thinking about how we can recreate that on paper with our pencils. Now what we're going to do is take all that information and put into a line drawing of our natural object. So here's my leaf, and what I've done is I've mounted it on this piece of paper here because as I'm drawing, I don't want to be fiddling with it. I want to be moving it around a lot. I want it to stay in one place. So by mounting it, it kind of gives it a place to stay put. So if that's available for you, I advise you to go ahead and mount your leaf, mount your object on something that's going to stay put. And then what you're going to do is decide what perspective do you want to draw from? What angle do you want to draw your leaf from? And once you've done that, you kind of explored and made those conscious decisions, go ahead and set your leaf somewhere that it's not going to be in the way. So I'm going to place it over here on my pencil sharpener, something like that. And then the next thing you're going to do is draw a boundary box. Basically, if you envision what this leaf looks like, or if you envision, a box around your object, right? A box in which that object's going to sit and it's going to touch all four sides. That's going to help you keep your drawing in proportion. So as you're drawing, for this size leaf, I'm going to draw about twice the size of it. So my box should be about twice the size of what the actual leaf is. But it should be in proportion to the shape of the leaf, touching all four sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and begin I'm using a 4H pencil right now, by the way, so my lines might be a little bit light. What I'm gonna do is once I'm happy with the lines I've made, I'll go back and I'll make them a little bit darker for you. So I drew not a true box or square because this leaf is longer going horizontal. The width of this leaf is greater than its height, so it's more of a rectangle. So that's what I did. I drew a little rectangle here for that leaf to sit in. From there, I'm gonna break this leaf down into more basic shapes. And what shapes do we see that make up this leaf? Do we see lots of squares, circles, triangles? What do you think? When I look at this, I feel like because of the folds of this leaf, the different angles this leaf is bending in, I see a lot of triangles. There's triangle here, triangle here, triangle here, triangle here. So when I break this leaf down into simpler shapes, I'm going to use those triangles. I'm going to use that information. So I'm going to start off kind of just some light lines. As you're drawing, use light pressure to begin because it's always easier to go and make your lines darker later on as you're more, happy with what you've created versus having to go back and erase things. It's always easier to darken lines once you know that that's what you want to commit to rather than having to erase and start over again. So keep it light in the beginning. So this is kind of a funky shape, but what I've done is I've, just broken it down into these triangles that all fit together to create this kind of funky shape. From there, I'm going to go ahead and start thinking about what's the true shape, the true lines of this leaf. So there's more curves, of course, so I'm going to start using some organic lines, more natural lines. This comes down, whoops. Now I've run out of paper. Maybe you can see some of those lines that I had to erase previously, but I'm running low on paper, so I had to reuse this one. Kind of cheating a little bit, but that's okay. All right, I'm not sure if you can see my line, so what I'm gonna do is I'm switching now to a 2B pencil. I don't advise you doing that right now. Just stick with an H pencil or 2H pencil so you don't go too dark too fast. But for the sake of this video, I wanna make sure you can see my lines. And now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna start committing a little bit more to some of these lines now that I know what I wanna keep. But before I start doing that, there's something else I wanna point out, and that's the direction of light. I have a light source coming down from up here. And what that's doing is it's creating highlights in different areas of my leaf. And then it's also creating shadows. So you can see here, there's brighter areas here, and here, and here, and kind of spread through the middle a little bit. And then, I'm not sure if from your perspective you can see this, but there's a cast shadow underneath the leaf, the bottom, and here, as well as shadows spread throughout these areas. So we have lighter tones, and then some darker tones in here, lighter tones in here, and then if we were to draw the shadow underneath, that's where our darkest tone would be, that cast shadow at the bottom. So that's something I want to be aware of, because as we're using our lines to create this drawing, we don't want to be doing shading for shadow. Shading is when we're doing this, right? We're not doing shading right now. We're just doing a line drawing. And to create tone, highlights, and shadows with line drawing, we're going to be adjusting the pressure. So if we want to make a shadowed area, we'd use more pressure, making a darker tone, right? To create shadows. If we want to create the highlights, the brighter areas, we'd use lighter pressure, right? Maybe even a broken line, a line that starts and then disappears, fades out, and then starts again to create those highlights. Now that is tone with line, right? Tone or even value. So we want to be aware of that, adjusting our pencil pressure with our lines to capture that tone. So what I'm going to do now is I'm looking at this edge here, this top edge. There's a highlight along here, and then there's shadow, highlight, shadow, and then it starts to get highlight again. So I'm going to start off a little bit in the middle, actually. A little heavier pressure, and then lighter pressure, heavier pressure, then go lighter again, and then it looks like there's some heavier pressure in here. Same thing over this direction. This dark lines start to get light as it goes into the highlighted area. Up here we have a strong highlight, so I'm using very light pressure, and then it gets a little bit darker as it comes through here down that middle line. And then we get into shadow again. The shadow starts to come back into a mid-tone, so not quite highlight, but just a little bit lighter than before. And I'm not going to commit to too much here because I'm going to come back and fix that later on. Then underneath here, maybe you can't see from your angle, but I have a lot of shadowed area where this little fold is below the line, underneath the leaf here. So over here, I'm going to do a little bit of a darker area with higher pressure. And then this little fold right here, this little kind of leaf shape or teardrop kind of thing, that's actually the fold underneath the leaf, right under here. Again, the art of drawing is the art of seeing, or vice versa. If you can see it, you can draw it. So notice those little details. I'm not committing too much pressure along here because I'm going to come back and fix this later on, but I just want to show you the shape of my leaf and the lines that I'm kind of using to create that real structure. Over here, I'm going to use a little bit medium pressure. All right. So under here, we have a lot of shadow, right? It's pretty dark from my angle. And I don't want to use shading, but I will use some hatch marks. Maybe even cross hatching. And then, let's see. We have a darker area in here and here, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to bolden those lines a little bit more, right? Right through there. Right through there. And then I'm doing some hatching that follows the curve of my leaf. Follow the curve of the leaf. This line through here some more hatching following the curve of that leaf. And I might even go back in just for fun, add some cross hatching to this. All right. Now I'm kind of jumping back and forth just for the demo's sake, so you can kind of see how to explore. But as I'm looking at this leaf, there's a lot of information that I could be focusing on before even getting into this tone. I could be thinking about those kind of, those veins you see in that leaf, the veins that are kind of coming off and showing that detail. I could be thinking a little bit more about how that shadow is on the right side through here and really boldening that line through here. Boldening it through here too, right? And then on the other side over here, adding some hatching to create some of that darker tone. Okay? Over here I have some detail, a little bit different, right? It's kind of got this lighter area where I think the sun has burnt through the leaf a little bit. I might draw that in really light. Again, I'm using a 4B, is that right? A 2B. 2B pencil, so it's a very soft lead and it goes dark very quick. So I want to be really careful with how I'm adding this detail. So it's a very light, broken line. There's some smaller marks in there, so I'm going to observe that. Over here, this line maybe a little bit darker and thinner, so I'm adjusting my pencil grip so I can use just the very tip of that pencil to get that detail. Down here, I feel like this line's a little bit darker. Something like that, all right? And then there's a vein that comes up, over, and goes up to here. And then I see this other vein. Can come along here, back down, and then it gets fainter as it comes down, and then it comes right on up and meets into this vein here. Now, even in between those two veins, there's more smaller veins. Again, if you can see it, you can draw it. These are very faint, so I'm using these very faded, faint lines that are kind of fading, breaking out. In addition to there's so much little detail in there. It's all about how much you want to pick out. I got these little marks up here. Just going slow with it. Maybe I want to focus this area over here. I have this darker fold, so I'm going to add some hatching in that area. Try to follow the form of that leaf. The stem of the leaf comes up, curls around. It's got the tip. Make that a little bit more clear. All right, something like that. I could think about all these little veins through here. I don't want to go too fast though. It's a little bit tricky doing these demos because I want to draw correctly, but I also want to make sure that I'm not spending too much of your time. So the whole point of this is to get you to draw, not for you to watch me draw the whole time. So I think I'm going to pause here in a moment. I see a little break in the leaf over here, so I'm going to correct this. It leaves a little bit of a crack right there. That little detail makes this really interesting in my opinion. So again, if you can see it, you can draw it. Small details are what's going to make your drawing really stand out. All right, but I think for right now, this might be enough information just to get you started, okay? So I kind of bounced around a little bit, but it gives you a good sense of just how to explore your leaf. Things to be thinking about: pencil grip, the pressure, highlights and shadows, and using just line, not shading with your leaf drawing. So go ahead, you guys, enjoy. Show me something cool. All right.